Hey guys, Carl here with TriloBITES Studios, and this is ad-libbed, but before we jump into the video, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's been subscribing, and we are very, very glad that you enjoyed Carnotaurus month, which is what we did during the month of September. Now, we don't really have any other Carnotaurus to talk about. There is a few more that we can think of off the top of our heads, but we don't have time to do them this month. So what we decided to do for the last video in Carnotaurus month was give you this big compilation of all the species profiles for all the Carnotaurus that we have done this month. So without further ado, please enjoy. Hey everybody, Carl here with another episode of TriloBITES, our species profile videos. Before we get into this episode, we wanted to thank everyone who has subscribed and watched these videos. And if you enjoy short, informative videos like these, please let us know in the comments below, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now, without further ado, TriloBITES Studios proudly presents the meat-eating bull of Isla Nublar, Masrani Global's Carnotaurus. The history of Masrani's Carnotaurus begins in the year 1984, when Argentinian paleontologist Jose Ferdinando Bonaparte found a nearly complete adult specimen of Carnotaurus on a farm in the La Colina Formation. Carnotaurus lived during the late Cretaceous period, roughly 72 to 69 million years ago. Its discovery quickly ushered in a new era of paleontology in South America, although it wasn't until 1990 that Carnotaurus was fully described as a species, and accepted by paleontologists worldwide. That discovery ultimately brings us to InGen, and their role in resurrecting the species. During the later parts of the 1980s and the early 1990s, Dr. Henry Wu was hard at work creating animals that would eventually be used in Jurassic Park. However, it's unknown when InGen's Carnotaurus was produced. We do know that by 1995, both Carnotaurus specimens produced by InGen were fully grown. InGen's Carnotaurus was roughly 10 to 12 feet tall and 20 feet long, and one witness claims that it had the ability to camouflage. This camouflaging ability may stem from the DNA used in the creation of InGen's Carnotaurus. InGen used either cuttlefish or chameleon DNA in the Carnotaurus genetic structure when filling in missing DNA sequences. Both the chameleon and the cuttlefish have the ability to alter their color and skin patterns in order to camouflage themselves. This ability, albeit amazing, would not be suitable for an animal on display. However, on Isla Sorna, the camouflaging ability helped the Carnotaurus while it was hunting, and it helped it to avoid the island's 6 remaining tyrannosaurs. It is unclear whether or not the InGen Carnotaurus survived the Isla Sorna overpopulation crisis of the early 2000s, or if it even survived until the Masrani global animal harvest that came with the rebuilding of the Jurassic Park project, Jurassic World, in 2004. The first new Carnotaurus produced under Masrani Global was created in May 2008. Only 4 animals were made, and were eventually housed in a paddock away from the visitor's eye, in Sector 5. These newer animals differed heavily from InGen's earlier version of the animal. These Carnotaurus were larger and had more robust legs. The park wanted to try to display these animals by May 2012, but found that these Carnotaurus were too aggressive to be handled properly near visitors and other animals. The park reinforced the paddock in Sector 5 to provide a safe environment for the animals and a safe environment for their handlers. Interestingly, we know the history of each Carnotaurus produced, yet only 2 out of the 4 have been given names. Let's start with the 2 unnamed animals, since their stories are the shortest. And by the shortest, I mean they actually died horrible deaths. The first unnamed individual, who was most likely starving, tried to hunt a Sinoceratops in the middle of Mount Saibo erupting. Sadly, this Carnotaurus not only failed to kill the Sinoceratops, but to add insult to injury, was then thrown around by Jurassic World's T-Rex, which then killed the Carnotaurus by stepping on its neck. The second unnamed Carnotaurus was seen later as the eruption forced the animals to a cliff. This Carnotaurus ran until it ran out of ground, and presumably was caught in the volcanic eruption. Now we move on to the named specimens. Demon, the first named Carnotaurus, was unlike the other Jurassic World Carnotauruses, because it was mostly black in color and had red markings, instead of being red with black markings. Demon was captured by Ken Wheatley's Isla Nublar harvest team to be sold at the illegal Lockwood auction. It is unknown if Demon was ever shown to the buyers at that auction, but later that evening, he was released into the wilds of California. 4 years after the Lockwood auction events, we see Demon crated in a shipping container inside the underground black market in Malta. Demon was released by Rain Delacourt in the hopes that Demon would chase and kill Owen Grady. The second and final named Carnotaurus is Toro, who could probably have his own video, but that's for a different day. Toro's story begins in late 2015, when 2 campers from the new Camp Cretaceous used an underground pathway and accidentally found their way into the Carnotaurus paddock. Toro found these campers near a feeder box, in which he gave chase and slammed his face into the box. This left him with a large cut across his face. Later, during the Indominus Rex breakout, Toro not only seems to travel southward to the ferry landing, but also has a final showdown with the campers of Camp Cretaceous, which left significant burns to most of his body. By late January 2016, Toro claimed Jurassic World's golf course as his new territory. In June, Manticorp traveled to Isla Nublar to capture new species for Biosyn. They captured Toro, and as far as we know, Toro is still living on the Manticore Island facility in peace to this day. This wraps up the first video in a series of Carnotaurus videos, so please stay tuned as we continue into September and bring you Carnotaurus month. Back in 2000, Disney released a little-known film called Dinosaur. And while we aren't going to be doing a paleo review of the film just yet, today I wanted to take a look at a specific aspect, or should I say a specific creature seen in the film. Today I'd like to explore a little bit of the science behind Disney's meat-eating bull. We continue Carnotaurus month with Disney's take on the creature known as Carnotaurus. Disney's Carnotaurus lived in a fictional Mesozoic. This Mesozoic is a world flush with biodiversity. It features titans like Brachiosaurus and lesser-known specimens like the Tindaspondylid Koolasuchus. This beautiful landscape is where we find Disney's Carnotaurus. This version of Carnotaurus is a vastly different creature in comparison to InGen's Carnotaurus, which we did a video about, you can go check it out here, and our real-world Carnotaurus, which is a video we're going to be doing later this month. The biggest difference between the real-world Carnotaurus and Disney's Carnotaurus is the size of Disney's Carnotaurus. This is a much larger version of Carnotaurus, and is easily comparable to Tyrannosaurus rex in size and bulk. It stands roughly 12 to 16 feet high, is 30 feet long, and weighs roughly 5 tons. Contrast that to the real-world Carnotaurus, which was a medium-sized gracile predator built for speed. Further, Disney's Carnotaurus has a huge box-like head, which is unlike its real-world counterpart, that has a smaller, more compact bulldog-like head. There are a few more differences, like the massively thick legs, which makes the Disney's Carnotaurus an ambush predator. This is, again, in contrast to the real-world Carnotaurus, which has a gracile build and most likely was a pursuit predator. We should also talk about the hands. The hands on Disney's Carnotaurus are pronated. That is, they face forward and the wrists face down. In the real-world Carnotaurus, the arms would have been facing backwards towards the body and been tightly tucked underneath the creature itself. In the film, we see 2 or 3 individuals of this version of Carnotaurus. The first one is in the opening scene, and is seen hunting a Pachyrhinosaurus. This initial shot helps put into perspective just how large these Carnotaurus are compared to the other animals in its environment. Next, we see either a mated pair of Carnotaurus or some siblings. Interestingly, there's also a size difference between the 2 paired Carnotaurus. These 2 individuals are featured throughout the movie as the antagonists, frequently encountering the protagonists in small engagements. They are also shown tracking the migrating herd, giving Disney's Carnotaurus excellent olfactory capabilities. Their size, senses, and sheer determination in the film make them a formidable foe to the protagonists. Unfortunately for this version of Carnotaurus and for the viewer, this species goes extinct by the end of the film, which only allows us to observe it for a short amount of time. However, it is safe to say that this is undoubtedly one of the most unique species of Carnotaurus to ever be conceived. Hey everyone, Carl here with TriloBITES Studios. Well, it's finally time for the species profile that you've all been waiting for. Today, we continue Carnotaurus month with one of my personal favorite dinosaurs, the real-world Carnotaurus. Carnotaurus is a genus of theropod dinosaur that lived in South America during the late Cretaceous period, 71 to 69 million years ago. As of now, there is only one species of Carnotaurus that is known, Carnotaurus Sastrei. Known from a single well-preserved skeleton, it is one of the best understood theropods from the southern hemisphere. It was in 1984 when an Argentinian paleontologist, Jose Fernando Bonaparte, found a nearly complete adult specimen of Carnotaurus. The specimen was uncovered in the Chubut province of Argentina from rocks of the La Colonia Formation. Carnotaurus is a derived member of the Abelisauridae family that occupied many of the predatory niches on the southern landmass of Gondwana during the late Cretaceous. Within the Abelisauridae, Carnotaurus is one of the largest members. Interestingly, however, it is lightly built. Carnotaurus is a bipedal predator, measuring 24 feet long and weighing at least 1.5 tons. Carnotaurus was a highly specialized theropod, as seen in characteristics of the skull, vertebrae, and the forelimbs. The skull was proportionally shorter and deeper than any other large carnivorous dinosaur, giving them a bulldog-like face, and a prominent pair of horns protruded from above the eyes. In 1990, Bonaparte suggested that these horns probably formed the bony cores of much longer keratinous sheaths, which, if true, then Carnotaurus really would have looked like a meat-eating bull. Now, we've all heard the jokes about T-Rex's tiny arms, but that is nothing compared to Carnotaurus. The arms of Carnotaurus are so small and underdeveloped that the arms themselves are nothing more than sausage links. Paleontologists even speculate that the fingers were encased in the flesh of the hand. However, the shoulder blade housing these almost non-existent limbs is massive. Paleontologists once thought that the muscles attached from these arms to the shoulder blades allowed Carnotaurus to use its arms in quick motion, as seen in the documentary Prehistoric Planet. But further studies should still be done on this speculative behavior. In most theropods, the caudal bones look like a plus sign, and had muscles attaching somewhat evenly over the bones all the way down the tail. This is not the case in Carnotaurus. In Carnotaurus, the bones are a V shape. This, in turn, allows the bottom group of muscles to be much larger than the upper group. Since it is known that dinosaur tail muscles aided in locomotion, then it's safe to say Carnotaurus was very fast, and was probably the cheetah of the mid-sized carnivores. Scientists have calculated that Carnotaurus could have had a top speed of 30 to 35 miles per hour, making Carnotaurus a pursuit predator. Carnotaurus lived in an open floodplain environment, and would have needed that kind of speed to pursue smaller, faster prey. In an area devoid of cover, an ambush strategy would not have been viable, leaving Carnotaurus with the one option of speed. The idea that Carnotaurus lived in a floodplain is further reinforced by Bonaparte. Bonaparte's research found evidence pointing to an environment of estuaries, tidal flats, and coastal plains. Carnotaurus stalked the many other animals that shared this dry, humid world with it and reigned over them as their king. Undoubtedly, Carnotaurus was the apex predator in its environmental role, and only relinquished its crown when it, just like all non-avian dinosaurs, fell victim to the KT event and disappeared into the fossil record. Hey everyone, Carl here with TriloBITES Studios. Well, September's coming to an end, and so is Carnotaurus month. But don't worry yet, gentle viewer. We've found another version of everyone's favorite meat-eating bull to examine for Carnotaurus month. The very odd version of Carnotaurus featured in Terra Nova. Now personally, I haven't seen the show, and therefore know almost nothing about its story. However, that doesn't mean I can't examine some of the species in it. Carnotaurus is one of the first prehistoric animals seen in the show, and oh boy, it's rough to look at. It looks like a leftover Jurassic Fight Club model that the writers managed to get their hands on. That being said, this version of Carnotaurus is extremely interesting. Out of all the Carnotaurus we've looked at this month, the Terra Nova version seems to have the most differences between individuals. Let's start with the size of this Carnotaurus. Using the Hummer seen in the show, we can roughly estimate this version of Carnotaurus to be around 12 feet tall and 25 to 30 feet in length, which honestly isn't too far off its real-world counterpart, measuring only a few feet taller and longer. One of the most recognizable of the differences are the horns. Each individual seen in the show has different horns. This is most likely due to sexual dimorphism. Our theory is that the males have larger horns for display, while the females have smaller horns. Now please do be aware that this is just our theory, since the show never actually discloses the details or reason for the horn size, or, well, at least we couldn't find it on the wiki. Another major difference between the Terra Nova Carnotaurus and all the other versions of Carnotaurus that we've examined is that the Terra Nova version has feathers on its forelimbs. It is believed, as of the making of this video, that Carnotaurus was one of the only members in the theropod clade to not possess feathers. Furthermore, Terra Nova's Carnotaurus has almost raptor-like forelimbs. As mentioned in our real-world Carnotaurus profile video, Carnotaurus has one of the smallest arm-to-body ratios in all of Dinosauria. In Terra Nova's Carnotaurus, the forelimbs are much too long, face forward, and have pronated hands. Last, I'd like to cover the environment that these animals are supposed to be living in. Unlike the real-world Carnotaurus, which is known to have lived in an open coastal environment, Terra Nova's Carnotaurus are shown living in both a tropical rainforest and a temperate forest. The real-world Carnotaurus was a pursuit predator and needed an open area to use its speed to chase down prey. This leads me to believe that the Terra Nova Carnotaurus was probably an ambush predator, using its camouflage to blend in with its environment, then strike at the perfect moment. Alright, that wraps up another Carnotaurus, draws us ever closer to the end of Carnotaurus month, where we'll wrap up the last of the species profiles and finally conclude our chapter on the meat-eating bull known as Carnotaurus.